AV in your ears, that's ambush being giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world. With my voice, Steve, Fascination Street. You already know, let's get it. When you whip in the Fascination Street, what do you...
This is DB Sweeney, and you're listening to Fascination Street Podcast.
Yeah, AV in your ears, that's ambush being giving you this audio visual down the most interesting street in the world. With my voice, Steve, Fascination Street. You already know, let's get it. When you whip in the Fascination Street, what do you...
Welcome back, Streetwalkers. This episode is with DB Sweeney. That's right, that DB Sweeney. You know DB Sweeney from movies like The Cutting Edge, Fire in the Sky, 8 Men Out, Memphis Belle, and more recent movies like Captive State, Megalopolis, and The Legend of Van Dorn. In this episode, we talk about his first chance to work on Broadway and who he got to work with, which was one of his heroes. We also talk a little bit about horse racing because he is working on a project and doing some research. And I share a story or two and he shares a story or two. I ask him about a couple of projects that he passed on. And we even talk about him getting to realize his lifelong dream of being a professional baseball player. What? DB is a huge supporter of the United States military and our armed forces. And so I asked him a little bit about why he's a huge supporter and some of the things that he does to help. I think some of these stories will blow your mind because they certainly blew mine. And of course, we talk about one of his best movies, The Cutting Edge. I asked him some of the behind the scenes stuff. I even asked him some questions that I got from my sister because that is one of her all-time favorite movies. And then, of course, we talk about some movies that he has coming out, just wrapped, in the middle of shooting, about to start shooting, and maybe we'll be shooting later this spring and then another one later in the summer. So we talk about all these new projects. Some of them are a little further along in the process than others, but we talk about them anyway. And DB is a really, really, really good storyteller. You guys are going to enjoy this. And this is my conversation with acclaimed actor from television, film, and stage, DB Sweeney.
Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated. Prepare to be fascinated.
Welcome to Fascination Street Podcast, DB Sweeney. What's up, dude?
Hey, man. I'm just glad to be here. Glad to be back with the lights on.
Well, praise the Lord. The lights are back on in Nashville. So I know you didn't have any power for the last couple of days due to some weather events, but were you able to listen on repeat to that song? I think it was by Vicki Lawrence, The Night That the Lights Went Out in Georgia.
Yeah, heard it a few times.
Just listened to it on repeat. Ladies and gentlemen, that's right. You heard me. I said DB Sweeney. It's that one. It's that DB Sweeney. The only DB Sweeney. You know him from films like The Cutting Edge, Fire in the Sky, 8 Men Out, Memphis Belle, and more recently, films like Captive State, Megalopolis, The Legend of Van Dorn, and guess what? He's got some things coming out, which we are going to get to. But first, DB, what I like to do is I like to start from the beginning, man. It helps us understand how the guests got from where they were to where they are. So where were you born and raised, man? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Long Island, way out east on the north shore of Long Island. If anybody knows that area near Riverhead, it was very rural when I was a kid. Now it's kind of wine country. I mean, I guess they figured out that the conditions for growing potatoes are the same as for growing Syrah grapes. So there's a lot of Wall Street guys now have their little mini Napas out there.
I love that. Did you know that wine grapes are grown and wine is produced in every single state in America?
That makes sense.
Even Alaska.
Wow. Well, I guess they got the ice wine.
That's right. They got the ice wine. I am just outside of San Antonio in a little town called Bernie, and I'm about 40 minutes, I guess, from Fredericksburg, Texas, which is the second most visited wine region in America next to Napa.
I was there at Christmas time.
You were in Fredericksburg, Texas?
Yeah, I have family in Texas, and we go out to Fredericksburg to see the German Christmas statue. What do they call it? It's like a candelabra, totem pole type thing. I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah, who was I talking to who was just there? Some other famous person like yourself was just there for the same thing. I want to say it was like maybe Bo Donaldson from Bo Donaldson and the Haywoods from the 70s.
Also been out in Fredericksburg lately because I'm working on a project about the horse named Assault, who won the Triple Crown in 1946. And my uncle, Warren Mertens, was the jockey who rode that horse. And only 12 people have ever won the Triple Crown as a jockey. So it's pretty remarkable. And Assault was the only Texas-bred horse to ever win the Triple Crown. And the trainer, Max Hirsch, was from Fredericksburg. So that's why I was visiting with the Fredericksburg Historical Society researching Mr. Hirsch.
So is that Horsehead Crossing?
No, that's another thing. That's a Western that I wrote. That's a work of fiction. No, but Assault is all based on truth, true history.
Is it going to be called Assault?
I hope so. I mean, it's in the germinal stages right now. I'm just, I'm still putting it together, but it's a fascinating story. The Texas cattle people versus Kentucky blue bloods. So it's a really great story.
A few years ago, I guess, good Lord, I guess it's now 10 years ago or so. My wife and I lived in Louisville, Kentucky for about 18 months. While we were there, it was one of the times we were flying to and or from, and it was like the day after the Kentucky Derby. So this would have been, I don't know, 2014, 15, somewhere around there, 16, whatever. And I can't remember the horse's name, but there was this horse that had won the first two jewels of the crown and was trying to win the third one or whatever it was. He was the favorite, odds-on favorite. I wish I could remember the horse's name. But he didn't win, and maybe it was by a nose or whatever. And the guy who owned the horse was like throwing a fit. He was like, they cheated, like losing his mind. He was just going crazy all over the TV. And we were like, holy moly. And then the next day we were flying out like back to San Antonio. And that dude was at the airport and he was screaming at somebody else there too. I don't even know what it was about because we were just like, hey, that's that. Oh, we're going to not be a part of whatever's happening right now. And we got the hell out of there. Have you ever been to, I mean, I know that you have jockeys in your family or whatever, but have you ever been to the races? Did you ever be at the Kentucky Derby or the Oaks?
I've been to 4 or 5 Kentucky Derbies. I've been to a few Belmonts. Been to Saratoga Springs, which is one of the great little gems of racing left in America. I mean, racing is under assault. It's really sad. They closed the track in Chicago, which was one of the greatest tracks in America because the Bears want to move there, and it's just a beautiful track. And Longacre in Seattle was closed. They built another track there, but we had all these really great racetracks in America, and it's just the sport is sort of really receding in the public imagination. So it's kind of a sad time for that. But I mean, we still do have the Pimlico and Gulfstream, and there are still some great tracks. Santa Anita, of course. There's still some great places to go see horse racing. Just they used to be like the same as with the wine. There was racing in almost every state. So not anymore. Now it's down to I don't know, maybe 12 states have major tracks.
We have one here in San Antonio called Retama. I don't know if it's a major track.
Sort of lower circuit, but that's a great track.
It's fun. That's the only, other than the Oaks. So when you live in Louisville, listeners, people who live in Louisville, we don't go to the Kentucky Derby because that's for the poors and the paparazzis. We go to the Oaks, which is the day before, or whatever. I have no idea. So we went to the Oaks and, it was a lot of fun. So I'd never been to the actual Derby, but the Oaks was a blast.
The Oaks is a great day. The Oaks is the day, the Phillies day. That's where they run all the little girl horses, and it's a wonderful day. I mean, if you go to the Derby, you got to go to Oaks Friday. I mean, it's sort of part of the ritual, and all the women have like 2 different outfits, for the 2 days, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, if anybody hasn't, it's one of those bucket list sports events to go to Derby weekend. So I fully recommend it if anybody hasn't done it, if you're at all like horses.
Absolutely. It's a blast. That was the year that I lost some money on, I guess Bobby Flay had a horse that was...
Oh, that's never happened. Nobody's ever gone to...
Oh, that's why I'm bringing it up. I'm the guy. I'm the one who lost money. So that was the year that I lost money on Bobby Flay's horse, and Rob Gronkowski won a shitload of money on somebody else's horse, and just like...
I was there. I was at that Derby. Yeah. Gronkowski was there with the other receiver from the Patriots was there as well. Welker, Wes Welker. I just remember those guys. At one point, I was in the area near where they were, and somebody I think Welker hit a big ticket. If I'm saying the wrong guy, I apologize.
I'm pretty sure that was the right guy.
Yeah, Gronkowski was there, and I remember somebody hit a trifecta or an exacta for a very large amount of money. It was, it's got to be a lot of money for guys that make that money in the NFL. For them to get excited, it was a big ticket.
Yeah, they were very excited. That's cool. That means we were at the same thing.
How about that? 6 degrees at DB Sweeney right there.
There, one degree, sort of. DB, I want to talk about a bunch of things. So we're going to go all over the place, and hopefully you'll bear with me.
All right.
And none of this will be in any chronological order, so good luck.
Hit me.
So a few years ago, you were in Paris. I don't know what you were doing. You were going to go try and find an American sandwich. No. You were not. You were going to go try to find a hot dog. Did you ever find a hot dog? And I'll tell you why I called it an American sandwich in a minute.
I did not find a hot dog, but that was kind of a joke. I love the French food, and especially the street food is really good. I mean, you get that ham and butter on a baguette.
Stop it.
You get a nice coffee with that. It's unbelievable. And I had a really good friend who was a chef in France named Gilles Pierre, and he had a restaurant there called Citrus Étoile. It was always great to go visit him. So I think, I was just kidding around how, just to be such an ugly American looking for a hot dog.
Well, I'm glad you said the word ugly before you said American, because I was that guy. A few years ago, my wife and I, our kids had just moved out of the house. They were off at college, and we were like, you know what? We're going to spend Christmas in Paris and Rome. So we went to Paris, and we spent Christmas in Paris. It was amazing. In the shadow of the Eiffel Tower, they had a Christmas market, which is kind of like like a street fair sort of a thing.
Sure.
They had this booth called, it was just called Sandwich American. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? So I went over there, and what it means is it's a hot dog, but it's a hot dog on a mini baguette. They put peppers and onions on it. So they hand it to you in this paper that just says Sandwich American on it. And then they cover the whole thing in fries, French fries, I guess. Hands down, I'm not kidding. I've said this a million times. Best hot dog I've ever had in my entire life.
Well, I guess you haven't been to Chicago, because if you get Vienna beef hot dog, Chicago style, that's about the best hot dog you're ever going to have.
Well, then I have to make a trip to Chicago just for that. All right. Less about me, more about you. Tell me why you're such a supporter of the United States military and how you support them with creativevets.org.
Ever since, really around 9/11, I started thinking, I was very, grateful to be American and grateful for people who, first responders, our military, and I never served. So not that I felt guilty about never serving, but I felt like maybe there's another way to chip in. So I started trying to, visit the troops overseas and on bases here in America. I started out doing it out of a sense of obligation, and then it became very rewarding. Like I felt like I was getting more out of it than I was giving. I was very inspired to meet all these young people, idealistic young people. A lot of people certainly join the military for economic reasons or who have no other choices. But there's a really strong percentage of people, who put on the uniform and raise their hand because of idealism. And that's very moving to me that we still are creating people, young people in this country that are willing to do that, because that's the only way there's a hope for the future of the country, is that everybody's not selfish and just, motivated by whatever is going to get them ahead. They're willing to, take this moment in life and serve their country. So I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of really impressive young people. And I got involved with Creative Vets a couple of years ago when I moved to Nashville. My daughter was at Belmont, and I was living in an apartment, and I would drive by this place called Creative Vets, and I thought, having spent time in LA, I thought Creative Vets is probably, I don't know, maybe it's like some kind of holistic veterinarian. They give the dog like custom-made food or so, I don't know. So I thought I got to pop in. So I went in there. I met Richard Casper, who started Creative Vets, and he's a really fascinating guy. He's a combat veteran, traumatic brain injury survivor. He started Creative Vets as a way of dealing with PTSD. Anybody who spent any time around veterans, you know that suicide is a major problem. And, down there in San Antonio, I've been to Brooke Army Medical Center several times, and some of our most seriously wounded veterans recover there. They do a great job. But, anyway, I went in to see Richard, and I said, hey, what if we used theater as a therapy for veterans, like to deal with their PTSD and as an anti-suicide initiative? So we started doing these stories where the veteran would tell their story, and they don't really know how to write a play. So we have to teach them how to write. It takes a long time, and just try to get to the germ of what their story is. So, and then we perform it in a really great theater at TPAC, is like the Lincoln Center of Nashville here. And it's just a beautiful facility, and they're totally supportive of us putting on this evening of plays where we, the veterans, we fly them in from wherever they live around the country, and I get the best actors that I could talk into doing it, and we do their stories, and it's profound and it's cathartic, and it's really a really great program. So I'm grateful to Richard for bringing me in. He started with doing this kind of work with songwriting and visual arts as a therapeutic for veterans with PTSD, and I just thought, wow, what if we really tell their story, right down to the details of the day they came back or the day they got blown up or whatever they feel like the root of their PTSD is. We're going to tell that story and try to find a way to, to sort of cleanse that emotional scar to some extent.
So that's what you brought to Creative Vets, was you brought the story writing aspect in, like, as a play. That was you?
Yeah, Creative Vets. Richard started this thing where he got great Nashville songwriters to sit with a veteran and turn their story or their whatever their feeling of trauma is into a song. And they had a tremendous success. They have a Spotify channel, and the biggest names in Nashville got involved, and it's been tremendous success. And they've also done visual arts and painting, sculpture, all that kind of stuff. But they hadn't done the theater piece. So that's the part that I brought in, and it's been incredibly rewarding. We've done 3 evenings so far, and it's so cathartic for these guys and girls that because of the biggest thing I think when people, veterans in particular, but maybe all people who kill themselves, is they talk about how before they do it that nobody really cares, nobody gives a shit. And so I just thought, we're going to show you how much we give a shit. We're going to tell your story like in a first class way and out there in an audience where you can watch it with a lot of other people. That's how much we care about you. That's
genius. Well done. I think that part of what is working with that particular project and the project that was going on before you got there is, and I've noticed this with my kids, even myself, there's that old adage, I think it's like a idle hands or the devil's plaything or whatever. And I think that what that means is that if you don't have something that you're actively working on, then your mind has too much time to fuck with you. And so part of, I think, maybe why this program is working is that, you're teaching these dudes how to write and women how to write these stories. And that gives their mind something to do other than to dwell on all the crazy shit that has happened to them and affected them. Dude, again, you're doing the Lord's work. That's amazing.
We all have to do it. Even those of us that don't have combat trauma, we all have trauma. Mm-hmm. I think that, we have these iPhones that we look at all day long, and they're satanic. They feed you all kinds of negative imagery and just stuff that's not productive to your day and worse. And so, all of us need to resist that with some kind of work, service or what our jobs are, our families. But we have to consciously, I think, every day, it's been a real struggle for me with, just every day trying to push that away and do positive things.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors. Let's get back into it.
Well, let's talk about some happier stuff. What do you say?
Yeah.
Where were you for 9/11? Happier.
I was in Malibu. Like I said, I'm from New York. My dad moved there just after 9/11. So in the aftermath of 9/11, my dad, who was in assisted living, like 300 yards from the pit across Chambers Street, and so I was in the vicinity of the aftermath of 9/11, for weeks and weeks after that, and I had a lot of friends who were firefighters, and it was just a terrible time for New York. So it made a big impression on me in so many ways. I just watched what police officers, firefighters, a lot of those guys enlisted and joined the Army or were already in the reserve. And, so it really, really impacted New York in a way that I think it still hasn't even recovered from in some senses.
Agreed. How did you get the idea to show your film, 2 Tickets to Paradise, to the military?
Brian Curry and I wrote the movie together, and Brian went on to win the Oscar for Green Book. So 2 Tickets to Paradise, in a certain sense, it's a little bit of a study for Green Book in a way. I mean, there's a lot of similarities. It's a northerner's going on a road trip to the South. Obviously the characters are a little different, but the impulse that I had to write the movie came from a conversation I had with a couple firefighters in that fall of 2001. They wouldn't have a funeral for a firefighter until they found remains. So once they found some confirmed remains, then the next week there would be a funeral. So into the spring of 2002, some of these firemen they want to go to every funeral because it's their brothers, but you shouldn't go to funerals and then go out drinking like 5 nights a week or 8 nights a month, whatever it turned out to be. So I was sitting with a couple of my firefighter buddies after another funeral in a bar, and they were getting drunk again. And I said, man, you guys, and not that I was judging that or anything, but maybe you guys could take a night off, go bowling or something, go to the movies. And the one guy looks me in the face, laughs in my face, and he goes, movies. Nobody makes movies for us anymore. And it was like somebody threw a dart in the middle of my forehead, which is a scene in the movie. But anyway, I'm going to write a movie for these guys. And then we made the movie, Brian and I, and I took the movie to Iraq and showed it to the Marines at Al-Assad military base. Hollywood used to show movies. They would preview movies for troops deploying before they came out just as a special treat. They stopped doing that years ago. Some of it was the justification was we have to protect against piracy. But I think it was really more that, Hollywood has turned its back on our people who serve. And so I was like, it's my movie. I own it. Nobody can tell me no. So I had 2 premieres. I had one on the flight deck of the USS Nimitz in the middle of the South Pacific in front of 3,000 sailors and airmen. And that was amazing. And then took it to the Marines at Al-Assad in Iraq. So those were my 2 premieres for 2 Tickets to Paradise.
That is genius. And how did it go over? Did they appreciate it?
They loved it. They loved it. I mean, there are some people like Toby Keith, rest his soul. He was a great supporter of the military. He used to go all the time. I actually went to Afghanistan once with Bradley Cooper. He was getting ready to do the Sniper movie. I can't remember it's called Sniper, the one with Clint.
I think it was called Sniper, yeah.
American Sniper, right? Yeah. He was preparing to do that. And so he went over, and that was great. Max Martini's a friend of mine. He's gone over and done. So there are guys that go, and girls, but it's not what it once was. In the 60s and 70s and 80s, we still had a lot of movie stars that actually served in World War II or Korea. But I think Oliver Stone's depiction of soldiers in Platoon really changed the way Hollywood felt about our military in a very negative way. And I think that it became unfashionable to support the troops, largely because of that movie and other movies like it that just depicted American soldiers as, imperialist murderers and people that, are sadistic and all these other attributes that are not accurate.
Wow. My wife was in the Navy. We don't say anything that would lead to her age, but she was in the military.
Well, thanks to her.
I will pass that on. Well, she'll hear it. You made your Broadway debut with Broadway Joe Namath? That can't be true.
That is true. That is true. That was my very first job in show business. I had one line in this play, and I came in at the end of the run. It was like the last 2 months of the run of the play on Broadway. Somebody left, and I got to replace him. And Joe Namath came in 2 weeks after me, and he replaced somebody else. I actually was asked to show him around the theater and all this stuff. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, when I was 12 years old, I had a Jets, white and green number 12. And it was just such a thrill. And he's such a nice man. And he was very serious about, trying to be an actor at that point in his life in the early 80s. Just a terrific guy. And anyway, after the show each night, actors tend to scram as soon as I started out in theater, did a lot of plays. But even on a movie set, people don't really hang out. When it's a wrap, people split. And in the theater, it's like, sometimes the actors are all out of the building before the audience has even left. But Joe, coming from a sports background as I did, the locker room is really the fun part of being on a team. So he would sit in his dressing room and have a few drinks, and everybody be gone. So I would come down, and I was in the crappy, supporting actor sharing a dressing room with 3 people, and he's down on stage level in the star dressing room. So I'd come down there and I'd say, "Hey Joe, what's going on?" He'd, "DB, come on in, have a drink." So I'd sit there and for an hour and a half, and you hear stories about Alabama and, the Jets winning the Super Bowl. It was amazing to me. And then we'd walk out of the theater an hour later or whatever and, right into the bright lights of Broadway. And I just couldn't believe I was standing there with Broadway Joe. And it's one of those things I regret. I criticized the iPhone a minute ago because it deserves every criticism we can give it in terms of its ubiquity and so forth. But I really wish I had a picture of me and Joe out there under the lights of Times Square. I mean, that would have been an epic photo to have, but I have it in my mind.
Well, I think it's Paul McCartney. If you run into him on the street and ask him for a selfie, he says, "I won't do that, but how about we just shake hands and spend this moment together and you can keep that." And so that's what you got. You got those wonderful memories with Joe.
Yeah.
Dude, I can't imagine what that must have felt like growing up in New York, being a fan of that dude, and then getting to actually work with him on your first. Wow, that's amazing. What scenario would cause you to put a cap full of wild turkey bourbon in your hair?
I mean, I think every young actor, when you're playing drunk, you have the genius idea that, I'll just have a few drinks and then I'll be an even better actor in this scene because I'll really be a little drunk. And it's a stupid idea because, acting is a precision business if you're trying to be good at it. It's sort of like when you're in a bar and people are drunk, they all think they're funnier than they are and they're just drunk. It's the same thing with acting. But I did feel like there was an aspect of the sensory aspect of alcohol that I thought would help me. So I didn't want to drink. So I just took some bourbon and I rubbed it in my hair so that when I was playing the scene, and I had to tell all my coworkers, I was like, "Hey, you're going to smell a little bit of bourbon. I'm not drinking, but this is going to help me to, kind of like, I don't smoke pot, but I know when people smoke pot, they talk about, even if you're not smoking, you walk in a room where people are smoking, you get a contact high. And I feel like the smell and the the sensation of the alcohol it helped me as a young actor. So I don't do it anymore because, I don't need to, but at the time it was, I was trying to be authentic and it was just a little actor trick.
Did it work in the moment?
It did very much because, you sort of smell that alcohol smell and it's sort of like it triggers reactions in your body, that are similar to actually being drunk.
Oh, love it. Tell me about the several months that you spent realizing your lifelong dream of becoming a professional baseball player. However, this was in Australia.
Yeah, when I did 8 Men Out, I played Shoeless Joe Jackson, and Shoeless Joe Jackson was a left-handed hitter, and I was a right-handed hitter when I played in college and so forth. And so I said to John Sayles, when they did Pride of the Yankees with Gary Cooper, I don't think a lot of people know this, but Gary Cooper was such a poor athlete playing Lou Gehrig. He was a right-hand hitter. He could not barely hit a ball right-handed. So he would hit right-handed and then run to third base, and then they would flip the negative of the film.
Oh, wow.
Make it look like it was a single, but it was still from a stadium height. It was terrible. So I just thought, you know what? Nobody had ever really portrayed a baseball player in a way that was believable to me, like from Bang the Drum Slowly or, De Niro, a great actor, terrible baseball player. Michael Moriarty was in the Kane Mutiny Court Martial with me. He didn't look like a baseball player. So I just thought there's a moment here where I could be the first guy to really believably and accurately play a player from that era. So I spent 5 months learning to hit left-handed. The last 2 months I spent with the Kenosha Twins, an A-ball team in the Midwestern League, Kenosha, Wisconsin. I rode all the buses. I was there in uniform for every game. They wouldn't let me play in the games because Minnesota, the parent club, pays the salaries and controls the at-bats and the pitching appearances and so forth. I did get one at-bat, but that's another story at the end of the experience. So anyway, all those guys that were on that team, most of them went on to have normal lives. But 4 years later, I was filming a movie in Portland, and 4 or 5 of the guys from the Kenosha Twins A-ball had made it to the Portland Beavers, the Twins AAA team, and I was filming a movie there. So I went down to the stadium to see, Terry Jorgensen was my roommate that summer, and a couple other guys were there, Scott Leyes. Anyway, they asked me to take BP, and they were really giving it to me bad about being a Hollywood so-and-so. And so I thought, you know what, I'm just going to hit righty today. And I never hit righty in the whole summer I was with them. I just hit lefty, and I did pretty well. We'd have a home run derby at the end of batting practice every day, and I hit a few, but not many. And so this day, I got up righty, and I hit 5 home runs on the first 10 pitches of that BP, which I'd never done in my life. I was a singles hitter, and I didn't really hit for power, but I just magic that day. And anyway, so the pitching coach for the Portland Beavers runs off the field after that BP, and he goes, hey, what are you doing when you finish this movie? And I go, I don't know. I'll probably do another movie. So he said, well, I manage a team in Perth, Australia, and their summer is our winter. So it was like September, and I don't remember. It was towards the end of the summer or the fall. He said, you come over, I'll give you a plane ticket and $75 a game. And I was like, done. I just became a pro baseball player. So I turned down several movies that winter that were like the most money I was ever offered before or since. But I didn't care. I was going to Australia, and I spent, 5 of the best months of my life playing baseball, touring Australia. It was unbelievable.
I'm going to assume you were not married at the time?
No, I wasn't.
Yeah. That is not a decision a married man makes.
I don't think that would have gone over well.
I love that. Good for you, man. Man, look at you. You just got all the lifelong memories. You get to be a ball player. You get to play with Joe Namath. Good Lord.
I'm very blessed.
Now, word on the street, a little birdie told me, is that you chose to be in the masterpiece film, The Cutting Edge, instead of The Mighty Ducks. Is that true?
Yeah, it was kind of right around the same time, because of 8 Men Out and my background, I sort of had a reputation around Hollywood. Here's a guy who can play athletes. So after 8 Men Out, there were all these sports scripts that came my way, which was great, but I was a little concerned. They're going to just think I'm a baseball player, that I'm an athlete. I turned down Field of Dreams, which is a huge regret to me.
Who were you supposed to be in Field of Dreams? Like, what was the...
Shoeless Joe. So and I didn't really get that movie. When you read the script, it was good, but it was a little weird. And, I had no idea they were going to create the masterpiece they did. So that's a regret. But anyway, there were several other sports type movies that I didn't take because I was trying to prove to everybody my versatility as an actor instead of just repeating myself, which is kind of a young actor type mentality anyway. But I got over that. But anyway, yeah, Mighty Ducks came up around the same time. I thought it was a really good script, but The Cutting Edge moved me. When I read the script, it's a sports movie, but it's a romance. And I just thought it's a beautiful story. And the guy who wrote it, Tony Gilroy, has gone on to be probably, the most prolific, really hot top shelf writer in Hollywood. And so he wrote all the Bourne Identity movies. He wrote Dolores Claiborne. He wrote so many movies. He's a big Hollywood rewriter too. Like they bring him on uncredited to fix movies, which is probably the best job in Hollywood because if it works, they give you the credit. And if it doesn't, you don't get the blame. But anyway, so Tony had done such a great job with the script. I was like, I want to do this movie. So it wasn't so much that I didn't want to do the other one, but sometimes you just got to choose.
Who were you supposed to play in The Mighty Ducks?
Part Emilio played.
Emilio's role? Are you and him friends? Y'all know each other? Oh, yeah, y'all are friends.
Yeah, I haven't seen Emilio in 20 years,
sure,
25 years, but I've always liked Emilio and admired Emilio. He's a very talented guy, very good filmmaker. He did this movie with his dad called The Way several years ago. It was really, really good, about a pilgrimage in Spain. So I wish we'd see more of Emilio. Young Guns, he's been good so many times.
He's been good every time. I think the first time that I knew what a powerhouse he was when he did, I think it was called Wisdom.
Oh yeah, Demi Moore, right?
I think so. Yeah, it was amazing. In that movie, and I don't know if he wrote it or whatever, but he was robbing banks, but he was only taking like the deeds to the farmer's property or some shit like that. Like that was a really amazing movie.
Hey, Streetwalkers, here's a word from our sponsors.
Warning. Not listening to Fascination Street podcast may cause unexpected side effects. Side effects may include sudden fits of boredom, irrational curiosity about everything you missed, the inability to name your favorite podcast interview, spontaneous ignorance of obscure celebrity stories, talking to coworkers about nothing because you didn't hear the latest episode. Other symptoms may include excessive use of the phrase, "Wait, what happened?" Chronic seriousness with no trace of laughter or delight, unexplainable urge to scroll aimlessly instead of being entertained. In rare cases, not listening may lead to wandering aimlessly through podcast apps, overexposure to true crime reruns, and thinking you're cooler than you actually are. If you find yourself experiencing any of these symptoms, stop what you're doing immediately and download Fascination Street Podcast. Ask your podcaster if Fascination Street Podcast is right for you. Spoiler alert, it is.
Let's get back into it.
Okay, so as I mentioned, and we have talked about it once or twice, you were in a film called The Cutting Edge. My sister, her name is Stephanie Sinclair. She is also an actress, and The Cutting Edge is one of her all-time favorite movies. I think it's in the top 3 all-time favorite movies. She loves it.
Right.
Just out of nowhere, she'll just text me toe pick, like just for no reason at all. So when I told her I was going to be speaking to you, she had a couple of questions.
Okay.
My sister would like to know if there really was a large group of people that saw it in the theater over 100 times. She feels like she read that somewhere in an interview, but she didn't know if it was true. Do you know anything about that?
I had heard some of those stories like that. I heard a lot of stories from video store owners, like this is back in the Blockbuster days and VHS, and the business model in those days was that the video store would pay like $90 for the VHS, and then they'd have to rent it out $3 a day. And so obviously you don't recoup until you've rented it 30 times. And I had video store owners tell me that they went through like 10 or 11 VHS. They just wore them out. They rented the movie hundreds of times over that next few years. So as far as the theaters, I don't think it was as big a hit because MGM, who released the movie, it was their biggest movie of the year, but it wasn't very big because they were going through bankruptcy proceedings. So they didn't have a lot of money to commit to it. So it didn't really get the push that it would need to have a big theatrical run. But on VHS and DVD, I know at one point for MGM, it was the #1 movie in their catalog that didn't have James Bond in it.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. It is a great movie. Did Moira really break her leg before filming?
She did. Moira and I trained together for 3 months in New York City. She was living in Long Island. I was in New York City. And, you know, the producers, Robert Court, terrific, Paul Michael Glazer, who directed it, they really wanted to get as much authenticity as they could. So neither Moira nor I could skate, but they rented out this rink called Sky Rink on 9th Avenue in this building in New York that was like, you know, on the 7th floor, which is kind of surreal that you get in an elevator to go to the rink.
Wow.
Rented it out for 3 hours every morning, 3 months, and they had trainers and everything. So Moira and I, you know, she's a competitive person. I'm a competitive person. Almost like the scene in the movie where we're trying to get to the rink first. We would try to beat each other to the rink. It was kind of just a fun competition. And then we work hard for 3 hours. And I discovered that there was a class of elementary school. Their gym class was hockey. And I watched these little 8-year-olds and 9-year-olds come in their stuff. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. And then I talked to the coach and I said, you know, my character would have experienced that as an 8-year-old. So I asked the coach, can I be in the class with these 8-year-olds? So I do my training with Moira for 3 hours. And then I do the class with the 8-year-olds. And that's where I really discovered the joy of the character. Because the thing about when you're 8 years old, it's just as much fun in hockey to score a goal as it is to fall down and slide 15 feet. And we would have races and slide. And it was so much fun. So anyway, so the training was going great. I focused on hockey. Moira focused on figure skating. She got so good within 3 months that she was landing jumps, like single axle jumps, which granted, they don't get you in the Olympics, but pretty impressive that you haven't skated for more than 3 months and you're landing jumps. Unfortunately, we got to Toronto, and in the first week in practicing trying to land one of these jumps, she broke her leg. So that was really a big setback for the movie. But it turned out, man, I had to skate more than they had planned because Moira had a stunt double named Sharon Cars, who was almost like a direct photo double for Moira. I mean, even if you looked at her from kind of the side, it looks just like Moira, same haircut, bone structure, everything. So Sharon and I ended up skating a lot. And when you have a partner in pairs, you know, even though the lady is so much smaller than the dude, if she's a good skater, it makes you better skating behind her. Like I would just imitate her stride. So there's a lot of me skating in that movie that wouldn't have been there had Moira been able to skate with my double. But it was a great fun experience, and so much respect for Moira, the way she toughed it out. Making a movie with a broken leg is no joke.
Yeah, I can't imagine. Did you guys get stunt pay for that movie?
No.
Wow, that's the whole movie was stunts.
Yeah, I mean, back in those days, I think there was a certain, maybe it's still today. I mean, Tom Cruise acts like he does his own stunts. Maybe he does. But, you know, it was a machismo thing about both actors and actresses. Like, I'm going to do my own stunt, you know, and nowadays I think the insurance companies and the producers step in and they're like, no, we actually don't need to shut down for 3 weeks because you break your arm.
My sister also wants to know if Cutting Edge is still your biggest residual check.
Oh, well, residuals went away. You know, Netflix and Amazon and all the streamers have stolen that from actors. My friend Sean Austin is now the president of Screen Actors Guild, so hopefully they're going to do something about that. But for a time, it was certainly big. But no, the biggest one I ever had was a Disney movie I did where I was the voice of the main dinosaur called Dinosaur. And that was astonishing. Like when you're in a Pixar movie or a Disney movie, I guess because families, but I don't know if it's still to this day because DVDs have gone away, but 20 years ago, if your kids liked a certain Disney movie, Frozen or whatever, they would buy that DVD and the kids are putting it in the player with peanut butter on their hands or whatever. And so parents would end up buying 3, 4, 5 times buying the DVD. So those Disney movies are the gold standard, I think, or at least were for residuals.
They must still be because Jack Black is still making those panda kung fu movies.
Well, I don't think he's waiting on residuals. I think when you're the main guy like that, they write you a nice fat check.
You don't think he's just waiting?
The only residuals that are really left is sitcom, I think, because sitcoms still play on regular terrestrial TV, and the contracts that we have as actors are sort of archaic. You know, you only really make money on things that are in syndication, so that doesn't apply to streaming.
Got you. Okay, I need you to do me a favor. We're going to talk about a bunch of projects in just a second, so this is the last question before that. If you tell me your Tommy Lee Jones story, I'll tell you mine. He lives here in San Antonio.
Yeah, Tommy Lee was not happy about the fact that I was hired to play Dish Boggett since I'm from Long Island, and as far as he knew, I didn't know how to ride. I did spend several months learning how to ride, but when I came down to Texas, he tried to get me fired. You know, I was kind of the flavor of the month, and Tommy Lee had not yet become, you know, the huge star that he is now. You know, that movie, Lonesome Dove, was part of the mechanism, I think, that propelled him into that stardom. But he wanted to get rid of me, but I wasn't quitting. And so he took me and Robert Duvall to his place in San Saba. I think he's got gazillion acres now, but then whatever, he had a couple hundred acres and a couple hundred head of cattle. And so we went down there to have a little cattle roundup, and he put me on a horse that was not completely broken, I think hoping it would throw me and then I'd quit. The horse did throw me, and miraculously I landed on my feet. I mean, what a dirty trick, right? To put a guy who's a new rider on an unbroken horse. So anyway, that's Texas. That's Tommy Lee. But I survived it. You know, he still was not giving me any credit at all. So later that day, we're drinking a beer on his porch, and he's complaining about all these wild goats that are eating his front pasture was actually a polo field because he loved to play polo. The goats were like eating his polo field. So it's Texas. There was a rifle there. So I grabbed the rifle. I shot one of the goats. I hung it on a tree and butchered it and made a stew out of it. Cabrito stew is what this is. Some of his Mexican ranch hands call it, because I had a cooking background. So once I was able to turn that goat that was annoying him into a stew, all of a sudden I had value. And Tommy Lee after that was a staunch supporter of mine.
Well, I'm glad that sort of had a happy ending. I will tell this story every chance I get until the day I die. When my son was little, his favorite movie all time was Men in Black. And to your point, you know, we must have bought that DVD a million times. It got broken, it got lost, it got misplaced, whatever. And we just kept buying it. He loved that movie so much. I was at a bookstore back when there was bookstores here in San Antonio, and I saw him, and I was like, I was by myself, and I go, holy shit, that's Tommy Lee Jones. Get right on out of the city. Listeners, he's a lot shorter than you think he is. And I walked over, and I wasn't asking for an autograph. I wasn't nothing, no picture, nothing. All I wanted to let him know was that, you know, that was my kid's favorite movie. And, you know, we watched it all the time. And so I said, Mr. Jones, my son's all-time favorite movie is Men in Black. He loves that movie. He loves that movie. And my son was so little. I said, he loves that movie, and he loves it so much that he thinks that your character's name is Man. He thinks it's Man and Black. And I thought it was cute. And so I told him that, and he didn't say anything, and he didn't even look at me. He looked down at the ground. He was holding a magazine. He put the magazine back in the rack. He turned around and he walked out the door and went and sat in the passenger side of a car. And I was like, oh, that was weird. And then this woman comes up to me and she looked at me like I had I don't know, stepped out. Like, she looked at me like I smelled, and she said, "What is wrong with you?" He just wanted to buy a magazine. And then she walked out and got in the driver's side, and then they drove away. Anyway, I will tell that story forever. I can't stand that guy. He's a total dick. And he is constantly on the list of, for some reason, the San Antonio Water Company puts out a list every year of like the top 10 water wasters. He's always on the list. I don't know if you guys have a good relationship.
I haven't talked to him since just after the movie.
Oh, good for you.
He called me up and ordered me not to do the sequel of Lonesome Dove. He ordered me. And I was like, okay, I guess this means I'm going to be in the Tommy Lee Jones business for the next 10, 15 years. And he's never put me in anything he's been in. So I really wish I had done the sequel of Lonesome Dove. John Voight was great in that part. And, it was great. I mean, a lot of sequels aren't good, but that one was pretty good.
What a nice guy.
Yeah.
Okay. You, my friend, have so much stuff that's going on right now. It's insane. You just finished a film called Red Ink. Can you tell me a little bit about that? It's a period piece?
Yeah. Red Ink is exciting. I heard about it and I was intrigued. It's set in 1949 in a newspaper, and red ink kind of implies like there's some maybe communist menace at that time, but there's a spoiler. I'm not going to say what it is. Anyway, what got me interested in doing the movie was they wanted to shoot it in continuous takes, what they call oneers. So, you got this whole newsroom, and it's an 80-minute movie in real time. So it starts at like 10:30 in the morning, and then it ends just after noon, just before noon, I guess, or I have the time wrong, whatever it is. It's basically the paper comes out at noon, so 80 minutes before noon is when it starts. And they wanted to shoot these continuous takes, which means, there's no flubbing your lines. You got to be in exactly the right spot. It's like doing a play, but more precise than doing a play, because if you're not in the right spot for the camera shot that they've created, you have to start over. That was very intriguing to me. So we shot the movie in like 6 days, these big chunks, 11-minute scenes where everybody's got to be on point and get their stuff right. And, so sometimes we do 15 takes to get the one they want. And it was just very exciting. That's why I wanted to do that movie. A lot of really skilled New York theater actors were involved. I haven't seen the end movie, but the experience was really, really great. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't know what the plans are for release. We just finished it 2 weeks ago. So I think maybe later this year. But Red Ink is very interesting. Good actors and a good idea.
I love that you haven't seen the whole thing yet. That it's that new.
A lot of times you don't see it until it comes out. Sometimes they get you involved and ask you to look at it. But I like to see it when it's finished, because sometimes when you watch it when it's in a raw stage, you sort of see the flaws more than you will see when it's ultimately finished. And now I'm working on a project called Boot Lake, which comes out of the 100 Pages project. And you got these social media guys, Christian Del Grasso and a couple other people that were really successful in Vines and other social media. They had this idea that what if we create a movie by getting 100 writers over 100 days to each write one page. So somebody writes page 1, passes it to somebody else who writes page 2, and they have to build on, you can't go on page 8 and say, everything up until now was a dream. Here's what's really happening. That was against the spirit of it. So you had to build on what the person before you wrote. So that sounds like a really interesting, viral Gen Z idea. It also sounds very chaotic, that maybe the result would not be so coherent. But the script surprisingly came out, very well. So I signed on. A big reason was because Marty Cove, from Cobra Kai and so many other things. He's an old friend of mine. We've never worked together. So, there's actors I admire that if I get a chance to be on set with them, I jump in. So right now we're actually filming Boot Lake here in Springfield, Tennessee.
Oh, I love that. Marty's son, Jesse, has been on my show. Good dude.
Jesse's in the movie too.
Oh, good.
Yeah, Jesse's terrific. He's wonderful.
Oh, that's fantastic. That sounds wild, a murder mystery born out of that 100-page project. That sounds really cool. So that's what you're currently shooting?
Yes, sir. And then I'm going to go on to do a movie called Last Bastard Standing in North Carolina. And the cast is not completely announced yet, but, it's an Outer Banks kind of, murder mystery. And it's a fun, atmospheric movie. So it's been great to start the year off with a bang. And I got a couple other things coming after that, but I don't want to jinx anything. So just trying to stay busy.
Well, it sounds like you are busy. You just finished Red Ink. You're in the middle of Boot Lake. You're about to start Last Bastard Standing. And then later this spring, can we talk about this? You're going to have another one called That's Amore?
Well, I hope so. I mean, my friend Nick Vallelonga, who co-wrote Green Book with Brian Curry, a longtime friend, he's in 2 Tickets to Paradise as an actor. It's been on again, off again for many years. And the movie stars John Travolta, Katherine Hagel. It's a beautiful romantic comedy. I mean, Green Book, in a sense, was Nick's father's story. Tony Lip, who was on Sopranos and so forth.
Oh, that's Nick's dad?
That's Nick's dad, yeah. And so that Green Book is about him. It's about a real guy. It's fictionalized a bit, but it's a true story of when he took that guy, Don Shirley, on that tour of the South. And so it's all based on a lot of stuff that really happened. Obviously, a movie, you tweak it a little here and there. But that's Amore, I think, in a sense, is like Nick's story. You know, like Nick's never married, and John Travolta plays a character who, you know, he's in middle age and he's never been married. His family's always trying to fix him up. And it's a very sweet, you know, sentimental movie that's just beautiful. And Travolta's going to dance in the movie. And so, you know, when Travolta dances, the turnstiles start flying. I think that it's just one of those things that makes people happy.
I agree. Wow, that's awesome. Also, I think Christopher Walken might be in that film, maybe.
That's been the rumor, and I don't know for sure what the exact final casting is, but yeah, there's been some incredible names associated with it ever since Nick asked me to be involved, and I'm just hoping that it comes together at last, you know, because there's been a few times. Once in COVID, it almost happened. Then it almost happened again a couple of years ago. And I'm just rooting for Nick because he, you know, he's worked so hard. And you know, you win an Oscar for Green Book. He won 2 Oscars actually. You really should get like go make your movie. What the next movie you want to make here's the money. Go have fun. You know, you just made a ton of money for Hollywood. You made a great movie, made everybody feel good. You get a free one. Here you go. But Nick never got that free one. So hopefully that's Amore will end up being his payback for all the effort he put in on Green Book and the quality of that film. Even if that's Amore is half of that, it's going to be better than 99% of the movies out there.
I feel like that's the way Hollywood used to work. It was like, you know, one for me, one for you, or something like that.
Yeah.
I feel like they used to get a little more leeway, especially if they sold all the tickets and then won awards. And there should be something. Come on.
It should be.
Okay. You're going to go back on the ice, bro. Tell me about Breaking the Ice. What?
That's still in development also. Hopefully that's going to come together. But Brandon Clark is a terrific filmmaker. He's made a bunch of different movies, and it's a story of a hockey player, and I'd be the coach. So I was intrigued because Brandon's such a passionate guy, and I can't say too much about it because the script is still in development, but it looks like we're going to shoot that later this year. And, you know, yeah, it'll be fun to get back on the ice.
Are you prepared for that? Are you in shape for that? It's been a minute.
Yeah, I've been skating, though. I've skated. I never stopped skating. I think guys was such a gift in that sense that I just fell in love with hockey. And so I've always skated. You know, I actually had shoulder surgery a few months ago, so it's going to be a little bit tricky to get back on the ice after that, but I'll do it.
Good for you. I'm in my early 50s, and when I was younger, I would skateboard all the time. Well, I tell you what, don't even fucking make me look at a skateboard now. I get scared. I'm going to hurt myself.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to let them use stunt doubles this time.
There you go. Yeah, especially since there's no stunt pay. You mentioned your friend Sean Astin as he's the current president of SAG. Oh, by the way, I had the 2-time president, Ed Asner, on the show. That guy was rad as hell. He was on twice. So Sean Astin, legend has it that this summer you will be producing and directing a Western script called Horsehead with your boy, Sean Astin, and one of those young gun fellows that you hung out with, Kiefer.
A lot of things have to go right. A lot of things have to, you know, it's the movie's been, I wrote it many years ago, and we've had the funding and lost the funding, had the funding. So it's not set yet, but we're hoping.
As most things in Hollywood that take somebody else's money, it's not quite on the books yet, but that's cool. I was talking to your friend and 2-time guest of my show, Jeffrey Blake. I was talking to him on Friday, and guess what he said? Well, first of all, he said to tell you hello, and he misses you.
Oh, yeah.
But he said that when they were filming Young Guns, you were not in the movie, but you were on set every day for almost the whole shoot. What is happening?
That's true. So I was living in New York City, and I got the part in Lonesome Dove, and you know I lied to the producer, Dyson Lovell. He said, "Can you ride?" I said, "Yeah, I've got an uncle in Montana. I go up there every summer and ride horses. I'd never even been to Montana." But I just thought, I think it's okay to lie in an audition as long as you make it true. Like if you say you can dance, learn to tap dance before the job starts. You know, it's so hard to get a job as an actor. I think it's okay to exaggerate a little bit on your skills, as long as you're going to back it up. And I always back it up. So anyway, I started riding in Central Park in New York City, and those horses are like, you can't tell those horses what to do. They walk around a ring. You can't, like, I'm trying to like take it off the trail and try to, and the horse will look back and be like, I got this, pal. I got this, you know, like a cab driver. So they won't even let you do anything. So, I went upstate. There were some horses upstate, but it was very difficult to get on horses. I would go back to Long Island where I'm from, and I had never ridden horses. There were no horses in my area that I knew about. Anyway, it was really tricky and expensive to learn to ride. So Charlie Sheen and I had done 2 movies together. Eight Men Out and No Man's Land. And Charlie said, we're going to do this Western. Why don't you come down and use our horses? And I thought that sounded like fun. Plus, I'll hang out with all the guys and Dermot Mulrooney, a bunch of great guys down there. So I get there the first day, and Charlie sets me up on a horse, and I'm getting ready to go out and ride. And this teamster starts yelling at me. He's like, hey, who are you? Get off that horse. And Kiefer Sutherland comes riding over on his horse. It was like a scene out of a movie. And he says to the teamster or the wrangler, whoever it was, he goes, hey, don't you talk to him that way. That's one of our finest actors, and he's a guest of the show. It was just great. And anyway, Kiefer and I became good friends, not just because of that, but for a lot of reasons. But I always remember that it was kind of a stand-up move by him. You know, he wasn't like big time in the wrangler or anything. He just was, standing up for me.
I love that. That's a good story. DB, you have a movie coming out in March. It's called The Protector with Matthew Modine and Milla. I can't say
Jovovich.
Thanks. I can't say her first name.
You got it? Milla.
Milla. See, I'm from San Antonio, so 2 L's is a Y, so I'm just like, Mia? Is it Mia? So Milla Jovovich.
Sopapilla Mia.
There you go. What can you tell me about The Protector? And is it going in theaters?
Well, it's actually just Protector, because there's another movie called The Protector. But yeah, this is a movie I made last year in Las Cruces, New Mexico. And the director was Adrian Grunberg, who directed Get the Gringo. And the reason I got interested was because he was the first assistant director on 2 of my favorite movies, Apocalypto and Master and Commander, 2 movies that I watch, like every several months. Like I'll watch both of those movies twice a year. I think Apocalypto is a perfect movie, and Master and Commando is not far behind. So I just thought, here's a guy who's worked for 2 of the best directors in the business on 2 of the best movies I've ever seen. So I'll take a shot. And Milla Jovovich was great in Fifth Element. And the story is a little bit, I don't want to say predictable, but it's familiar. It draws from Rambo, First Blood, the Stallone movie. I kind of play the Brian Dennehy part, and Matthew Modine plays the Richard Crenna part. It also draws from Taken. Milla's daughter in the story is abducted, and then she uses her special forces training to get her back. So that's going to be familiar to people that love Taken. Anyway, the movie turned out great. It was not a big budget movie. They're releasing it in supposedly 1,500 screens on March 6th, which is pretty, I don't want to say unprecedented, but most movies that of that budget level do not get that kind of release because it costs a lot of money, the promotion to put a movie in theaters. So we're hoping for it. I mean, I saw a big chunk of the movie. I think it's a lot of fun. And it was great to be back with Matthew, who I've always admired. It was really fun. And so I'm hoping the movie works and they make Protector 2 and 3.
Me too. That sounds amazing. Now I got something to look forward to in March, man. Thanks. DB, tell everybody where they can find you on social media, where I assume you will be, I guess, dropping hints and nuggets about all of these projects that are coming up.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Real DB Sweeney with no dots in there, obviously. And I'm also on X. I don't want to disappoint people. I got to get better at it. I don't put many things on there. But with all this stuff going on, I'm going to try to get a little better about it.
Well, it sounds like you got maybe too much going on. You got so much stuff, you're not even going to learn how to use all those things.
Yeah, I always feel funny, like, here's a picture of me with my famous buddy. Or, I just feel like I know that's the coin of the realm and the social media thing, but I always feel like, is that really the right thing to do? I don't know.
Yeah, we live in interesting times. It's a fine edge we got to walk. Well, DB, I know we talked about a lot of things, but is there anything that we didn't talk about or I didn't ask you about specifically that you wanted to talk about today? Like, did we cover the big bits?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, because you're in San Antonio, I just wanted to give a shout out to all the people at Brooke Army Medical Center and especially Fisher House, which is, an unbelievable charity that they have these houses right next to places where our grievously injured warriors are treated long term, like Walter Reed and Washington and many other VAs around the country. And Fisher House provides housing for the families of the grievously wounded because the rehabs are so long. Instead of the families having to come and stay in a hotel and the hardship for the children and everything, Fisher houses are beautiful places where dependents can stay during the rehabilitation and recovery of the wounded veteran. So it's a beautiful charity. And if anybody ever feels like they want to donate a little money, I have no affiliation with them. I just admire what they do. But the one in San Antonio, that's one of the best Fisher houses I've ever seen.
Oh, wow. We'll check you out. Look at this guy, ladies and gentlemen. I agree with DB. Go give Fisher House money. Help them keep doing the good works. That's awesome. That is so cool. You could have said more about yourself or your movies or whatever, but you were like, you know what? I'm going to talk about some other shit that I'm not involved in, but I really love. That's really cool of you. DB, I really, really appreciate all your time. You're a badass. I love watching everything that I've ever seen you in. You're always amazing. You always bring it. And you're one of those names that I grew up with. You know, like, I think you're older than me, but not by much. And, you know, your name has always been in the forefront of my life. So thank you for spending the time with me. You're amazing.
All right, man. Have a great day, and I hope we get to do it again sometime. Absolutely.
And the next time you're down in Fredericksburg, holler at a fat kid. I don't know if you drink wine, but we're members of a few places out there, and we can have a blast.
Sounds great.
Take it easy, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Enjoyed it. All the best. Have a good day.
It was 100% my pleasure, and you have a great rest of your week.
You too, bud.
Bye-bye. Opening music is from the song FSP Theme, written, performed, and provided by Ambush Vin. Closing music is from the song Kosh, written, performed, and provided with the blessings of Kosh Mojo himself. If you like the show, tell a friend. Subscribe and rate and review the show wherever you listen to podcasts. All episodes are available ad-free at patreon.com/Fascination Street Podcast. And don't forget to follow the show on YouTube, Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok. And again, thanks for listening.